I thought it was funny in reading Who's Afraid of Gender that Russia labeled gender a threat to national security.
Yeah.
The Vatican labeled it, I think, a threat to man. And
Yes.
that's interesting.
Yes.
So the question is, I mean, why Russia stands to benefit from keeping this hierarchy and not questioning gender, or why this would benefit the Vatican, or why in the United States this seems to be a predominantly right-wing issue.
Yeah. Um, I'm not opposed to the question of who benefits, um, but I worry if that's the only operation of power we see, we may not be grasping the phenomenon. In other words, it could skew our approach, to the problem at hand. For instance, Russia, um, Putin's government has blended with the Russian Orthodox Church in a way that is unprecedented. There's no church-state distinction anymore, and
I didn't know that.
yes, and he at the same time he's banned academic and popular work in lesbian and gay studies, for instance, or gay advocacy, which is considered to be counter to the nation. So heightening a certain kind of morality, sexual politics and morality, has the effect of defining Russia by virtue of certain idea of masculinity and femininity, and casting the European Union and the urban centers of the West as threats to national identity, the spirit of the nation, and the security of the nation. Because people know, and Viktor Orbán clearly knows, that if you secure the family to reproduce the nation in a certain way, and you also infuse the defense of the nation with the defense of the family and the defense of gender, then you, or of sex as it's been defined within your culture, then you bring people on board. You get popular support, and especially if you're asking for that kind of support and saying there's a very fearsome enemy out there that is threatening to come through the door.
So reifying the gender binary earned support because it's sort of playing to what, for instance, the supporters of somebody like Orbán in Hungary already believe, and it gives them an enemy?
Well, it gives them an enemy, but for Orbán, I mean, who also opposes miscegenation, and he's been quite clear, he wants everyone to consider their sex as natural and immutable, right? I mean, and he also believes that this is a religious truth that has to be accepted, and that those who are introducing the language of gender, or who think that sex is not immutable or not clearly binary, that those folks are threatening the foundations of the nation. So Orbán doesn't profit from that in a financial way, right? He doesn't do that, but he does seek to ground a certain notion of national unity and nationalism through keeping migrants out, through his opposition to miscegenation and his opposition to gender. He wants to keep the family in its traditional form. So for him, the best way of doing that is to say that the national version of the family is the natural one. So he uses the category of the natural to serve the national and the nationalistic.
It's interesting that, again, the attack on migrants goes with the attack on gender, and you mentioned earlier it also goes together with an attack on critical race theory, in the United States at least. And is this all sort of the same thing about giving the supporters an enemy or a scapegoat or something like this?
Well, it's not just a scapegoat, although it is. It's very intimate. You know, if you tell somebody that you're born a certain sex, but you don't have to stay that way, they're like, ah, don't talk to me like that. This is who I am,
Yeah.
right? This is me, and it's always going to be me, and this is not changeable, right? And yet they see someone else who does change, or someone else who doesn't fit in the existing boxes because they're intersexed or whatever. They can be frightened because if that person can do it, then does that mean that I can do it, or that what I take to be most fundamental about who I am is actually changeable? I don't want to think that thought, right? So you expunge the other, or you exclude the other, or banish the other, or censor the other as a way not to be reminded of the fact that, well, there are some things that can change. Many of us don't want to, I have no interest in, are quite comfortable with the sex we were assigned, and we're going along in life with that. But others are less sure and actually want the freedom to investigate, including a lot of young people, apparently, who are experimenting with pronouns and trying to figure out who they want to be and how they want to be.